Hi there, welcome to Subpar Stitches. My name is Hillary and this is my Flosstube channel. Today I have just a little bit of a Flosstube extra for you guys because I did finish my Year in Stitches project. If you are interested in this, I figured I would give kind of a breakdown of what it is, why I did it, how I did it, and then some statistics about the designs and stitch count and colors and all that. And all that will be timestamped down below, so if all you care about is the stats, you can skip right to the end and check those out. If you've been following me over the course of 2024, you might know that this is a project that I've been working on for the entirety of the year, and it was a massive labor of love, and you may have heard me call it like my stitch diary as well, because that's essentially what it was. So I guess that just leads us straight into the what. Like, what is this project? Every day in 2024, I stitched one motif. The maximum dimensions were 20 by 20 squares. And the motif just had to represent my day in some way, kind of acting like a diary. And I would typically not stitch on this every single day, but every couple of days. So I would stitch a few motifs at once because these are smaller motifs and there's you can see there's a lot of color changes that are involved, even in these itty bitty ones. And so I would build up a few, or towards the end of the year, I would get like a little bit behind. So I would be stitching like 10, and this is all I would stitch on for the day. So those were not like the best moments, but I did finish this on December 31st. I did start it a little bit early in 2023. I started in December of 2023 because I started just this like title part, this A Year in Stitches, this really, really bold font here, because I knew that was going to take quite a while because it was pretty big. And I wanted to get a head start on that so that on January 1st, I could start stitching my very first motif, which happened to be Year of the Dragon. So I did a little étoile dragon there. So that's what this project was. But maybe you're wondering, hey, why did you take on such a crazy project? And that is because ever since I was a kid, I used to be an avid journaler. I loved writing in my journal. I loved sticking like stickers and like pictures and all kinds of fun stuff in there. And I was really passionate about it. And then around 2020, it just fell off. I just stopped journaling almost entirely. The journals from that year, because I save all of my journals. I don't know why. I should probably just burn them. But I save them all. And when you go back through like the early 2020 years, which I mean, we still are, but like between like 2019, 2020, and 2021, I didn't really journal at all. Maybe like a few days out of the year because I just lost all motivation. In 2020, you guys know what happened. Not all of us, but a lot of us got sent home and then nothing was going on. And there was just nothing for me to write. There was nothing inspiring me to write. Even in 2019, I was just feeling really depressed because of my job and I felt really bogged down. And so it was just really hard for me to want to document any of that. And so in like 2021, I got this idea of trying like alternative methods to journaling. So there was one year that I think I did like a picture a day. And I just, every single day I took one picture and I used I have like a printer for Polaroids and I printed those out and I put them in like a little photo album and wrote just like a little like quip about each day. And then I don't know if I did anything in the next years, but like I had wanted to find something different to do because I was no longer inspired to write. And in late 2023, I was kind of like seeing, and I've seen these before, but people will do like a little embroidered motif a day. And I've seen them in these like, they're like always framed in those like circular hoops and they look really cute, but I'm just not talented with embroidery. It's just not my thing. And so I thought, how can I translate that to cross stitch? And I had Googled like cross stitch a day type things. I can't even remember what I specifically Googled, but I found one video of somebody who did exactly this, but for a vacation, like I think it was like a 3-month vacation they took to Japan. And I will have that video linked down below in my description box. But I took her idea and I just kind of like expanded on it because that was already kind of what I wanted to do, but I wanted to see how other people may have done it. And the funny thing about this is, I had done this because I had like lost my passion for journaling. Well, this year I've lost my passion for this because this took so long, and it was a lot of effort, and a lot of like pre-planning and things like that. So now I'm back to journaling in 2025. So hopefully that sticks and I don't have to do any more crazy big projects to force myself to just write in my journal. We'll see. So how did I do this? I paid for like the premium subscription to Stitch Fiddle, which is just like an online pattern designing application software. I don't know. And I started looking for fonts that I thought would look good. And I believe this was like a free one I found from Lord Libidin. I can't remember, but I mapped that out and then I blocked off every square in like alternating colors, almost like a checkerboard of 20 by 20, so I could see my exact design space. And I just picked two like different gray colors just so that I could visually see like this is how much space you have to work with. And then I just every single day in a separate like Excel sheet, I would type up like a quick quip about the day, like a sentence, literally a sentence, and a motif idea. And then I would hunt for a motif that would suit that, or I would design it myself. I've never designed anything before this, and I'm not like a designer, but I feel like I did pretty well, all things considered. And I used a lot of different reference books and things like that, which I will share with you here in a minute. But I really enjoyed the process, even if it was a little bit daunting. And I made sure to typically stay on top of this, like I said, stitching on it every couple of days, just so I didn't fall behind, because I knew the second I fell behind, there would be no catching up. And even if I wasn't stitching on it that day, I always made sure to write down in my Excel sheet my little quip for the day and what type of design I wanted to do so that I wouldn't forget, because that's one of the big reasons I journal is I forget everything. I don't have a very good memory. I just cannot keep things up in the old noggin. So I made sure to write down every single day what I did. And in order to remember to do that, I set a recurring alarm in my phone for 7 p.m. every day so that I would remember to go and put my stuff into the Excel sheet. One of the nice things about 2024 was because it was a leap year, it made it so that the bottom could be like perfectly centered underneath each motif here. If it had been 365 days, I would have had to like offset them, and I feel like it would have looked a little funny. So that was just like a happy little accident that I was glad worked out. And it was not easy to find fabric that I wanted to use, because I wanted to use like an easy grid, because I'd never used that before and I thought that might be helpful. I didn't find it any better than just counting myself, because I ended up counting myself anyways. So it was fine, but I don't think I would ever use Easy Grid again, especially because my experience with washing out the grid was such a hassle. The instructions said to soak it in warm water for 1 hour and the grid would come out, and that did not seem to be the case. When I first checked on it after the 1 hour in warm water, it was barely different. So then I was like, well, maybe I'll use hot water. But I was worried. I was really worried about, because I used a lot of 666 in this, and I used some newer skeins of it, like modern skeins, but then I had some old, like 666, like really old DMC labels that had been gifted to me by somebody at Rob's church, and it was like from her mother's embroidery days. So like these were really, really old skeins of 666. And I was really concerned because even though the color was much more vibrant on those, in that whatever dye lot it was, I was really worried that they might not be so color fast, because red is notorious for bleeding, but none of it bled. I was very lucky. And so I ended up soaking this in really, really hot water for 3 hours before all the grids finally came out. And I didn't go into this thinking I was going to design a ton of them. I had a lot of resources that I was going to use. So I have several books here that I used, but I also used a few other things as well. I'll show you these books in a second. I used pieces from patterns that I already owned. So oh, I dropped a pen. So for example, this little lamp right here, that is from a larger pattern that I had, as well as like this little big top right here. That was from the Snowman series by Cottage Garden Samplings. I just made it a little bit smaller so that it would fit on the 20 by 20 square. So I did use like little bits and pieces from like full patterns. Sometimes I would Google pixel art or like 8-bit art so that I could get like an idea of what I wanted to do, and then I would just change the colors or modify it however I wanted. I also have a digital copy of the Stitch People book, which if you're not familiar, it's like a book that has basically like a puzzle piece kind of like build your own portrait of somebody and cross stitch it, and I really like that book. I've used that book so many times for so many things, so I use that. And then as far as like the physical books that I have, I started out, I had these 2 Makoto Ozu books, and these are something that I bought when I was living in Japan years ago. So this is my Cross Stitch 500, and then this is like another really big book of cross stitch, and they are, I can show you the inside because they just are like sectioned off into, so like this is like retro stuff, this is like military, we've got like dinosaurs and stuff, and then in the back of the book are all the patterns. So this one has like a bunch of different stuff. This one is all like related to like different countries. So like you can see like we have like Netherlands and Finland and Egypt and Russia and stuff like that. So I kind of, because I'm very familiar with these books because I've used them quite a bit, I kind of knew exactly where to look in them. And then I found out that he also has a book in English that is for sale on the American market called Mega Mini Cross Stitch. It's the same layout, just in English. So we've got like men's fashion and ladies fashion, like cafe and bakery, like tons and tons of cute little stuff. So I had these 3 Makoto Ozu books, and I was like, there's got to be other people who make books that have just like specifically mini motifs, right? So I found this one, and it's called Cute Kawaii Cross Stitch. I didn't use this one as much, but it definitely did have some helpful things. So the patterns are on the same page. So you can see like they have just like itty bitty motifs here. A lot of them were too big for what I was doing, but I could modify them or they would give me ideas. So this one is split into a few different sections. So let me see. Yeah, this one was like a lot of food. So it's got, you can see here, fruits and veggies, sweet treats, yummy food in the kitchen. So like all those are food. Adorable animals. They have spring, summer, fall, and winter. And so you've got like 4 seasons there as well. So this one was a little bit helpful, but I didn't use that one as much. And then a friend of mine found this Frog and Toad cross-stitch book, and she got it for me for my birthday. So towards the end of the year, I ended up using this one quite a bit, because in the back they have these like smaller motifs, and the patterns are on the other side, so I got to cover it up. But yeah, so I used this one a little bit as well. And then whatever I couldn't find or couldn't, find online, I just designed myself. So with all that, why don't we get into the actual statistics? So first I'll tell you how many designs that I did from each area. So there were 366 designs. 21 of them came from the Cute Kawaii Cross Stitch book. So like I said, not too many. 5 were from the Frog and Toad book. 119 came from these 3 books. So any Makoto Ozu pattern, I just all labeled the same. Any fraction of a pattern that I used, I marked down. So I used 12 fractions of different patterns. I used pixel art 66 times. For the Stitch People book, I used it 6 times, mostly to design like, you can see like if I was talking about a specific person, I would do that. But they did also have, there's a dog on here, because they do have some animals. So this dog is from Stitch People as well, but I think everything else was like people's faces. And then I designed 166 of the patterns you see on here, which is way more than I expected. I was kind of shocked by that. To be quite honest, I thought I would design almost nothing and everything else would come from like the Makoto Ozu books and stuff like that. So I was kind of proud of myself for seeing that number. So the fabric itself is a 32 count easy count even weave from Zweigart, and the total dimensions of this piece are 360 stitches across by 460 stitches tall, so it's a big boy. The number of colors that I used in this entire piece were 154. And the most used color, which probably shouldn't come as any surprise, is 310, because I used black in just about every design. Not just about every design, but I used black in a lot of designs. And in total, 310 has 8,057 stitches in this whole thing. The color I used the least was 3021. It has 1 stitch. I don't even know where it is, so don't ask me. But yeah, I could not believe I had a color that I used literally for 1 stitch. That seems insane. The total number of stitches in this project, so the number of stitches I put in this last year, 39,173, which I believe makes this the second most stitch dense thing that I've ever stitched. The biggest one that I've ever fully stitched is the X-Files I Want to Believe poster, which was like my first ever full coverage piece. And I'm working on a full coverage piece right now that's like 115,000 stitches, but that's neither here nor there. We don't talk about that one. So yeah, this currently is my second largest finished piece that I have ever done, and I'm pretty proud of it. I gotta say, I did get an interesting question in my DMs on Instagram. Somebody asked me if I considered like size of motifs when I was like stitching them and designing them next to each other. And I initially was worried it was going to look funky if I had like really small motifs next to really big motifs or something like that. But I just realized I couldn't pay attention to that, because then I felt like it wouldn't be so, what do you call it? Like it wouldn't ring as true, because, you know, if like, for example, this is where I started feeling like, oh, maybe this is weird. Like I stitched this big old mitten and then these tiny sushis next to it. So I was like, oh, that's going to look really funky. But when you look at the whole, like the thing as a whole, I feel like it's not so, like, you don't think about it too much. So it is really hard to show the whole thing because it's huge. But yeah, that is my year in stitches project. If you have any like questions or like anything you want to know about it, just let me know down in the comments and I will try to answer those for you. But I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little Flosstube extra, and I will see you next week for my stitching update. Bye.